Hi, Bill Vales here, and I'm here to tell you about an exciting new show that we've been working on at LCTV. The name of the show is Your Backyard. And on Your Backyard, we're going to take you through all the conservation trails that are in Littleton. And our guide for this is going to be the Guide to Conservation Land of Littleton, Mass. And this book was put out by the Littleton Conservation Trust, written by Art Lazarus, a longtime Littleton resident and geologist. We're very excited about this show, and we'd like you to sit back, relax, and let's see where your backyard takes you today. Well, here we are at Mill Hill, which is right off of Mill Road in our beautiful town of Littleton. We're next to Parley Lumber that's behind me. And we're going to take a walk on this beautiful little piece of land. It's about 24 acres. And let's see what we find here. Well, here we are starting up the trail on Mill Hill, and you'll probably notice that we're hearing some noise in the background. Some of that is the work being done at Parley Lumber, but there's a lot of traffic noise that we're hearing, and that's from 495 because we're very close to 495. Now, Mill Hill was seeing birds, finally birds, okay. Okay, let me compose myself. Okay, so we're hearing a lot of traffic from 495. And Mill Hill used to be the site of some small, not homes, but summer cottages that people would go to overlooking Mill Pond. And when 495 came in, it kind of split the area in half. Okay, so we have Mill Hill here, but now Mill Pond is on the other side of 495. So when you come up here, you are going to hear the traffic noise, but that's the way it goes. Now, I took about 3 steps over here and we found an absolute gem of a erratic boulder, but there are some other things going around in this boulder that I'd like to talk a little bit about. So what we have here, you'll notice this beautiful stripe. Okay, this beautiful stripe that's in the boulder. This tells us a couple things. This rock, when this was in its bedrock form, meaning it was anchored to the ground before it was broken away by the ice and other erosional processes, had developed cracks in it. And the normal cracks occur from a process called jointing, where you get horizontal cracks and vertical cracks in rocks. And after the joints occurred, there was an injection of magma from below. And this magma, this is a granitic magma that was injected between 2 joint pieces, and so we have some gneiss here with a granitic intrusion. It's called an intrusion. This was injected, and then the ice hit it during the Pleistocene, rolled the rock, and eventually dropped it. So there's a great story. Now, I need to add, this is a quiz, okay, and I'm not going to give you the answer yet. Which of these, well, actually, I did give you the answer already, but maybe you've forgotten because you gloss over. Okay, how can you figure out which of these rocks are older? This or the injection? So you think about that, and there won't be a prize other than you'll be happy to get the right answer. Okay, moving on from the boulder we were just talking about, we come upon a few trees that are in a high level of stress, to say the least. And these trees are white ash trees. And these trees, I used to have them just dotting my property off of 119. And over the last few decades, they've been dying, and they've been dying as a result of the emerald ash borer. And it's an insect that has really devastated the white ash, and we're losing a lot of the white ash that are around here. And some interesting things I've noticed about the ash. I've burned wood for many years, and ash is one of the woods that you can pretty much cut down and burn it in a day or two. Okay, it doesn't hold a lot of water, and it burns fairly hot. And I started picking up a lot of pieces of dead ash that were on the ground of our property, and the wood would stay there and it would not rot for 10, 15 years. I could pick it up, cut it, beautifully straight grained, and it would burn. But the ash tree is really under stress. I mean, these trees are, this one is virtually dead, but if you were to cut it up, the wood would be beautiful. And this has a little life in it, this one here, but it doesn't have many years back. I don't know if the emerald ash borer makes it, I mean, it would certainly stress the tree out and probably make it more susceptible to other sorts of diseases, because I'm noticing some issues with the bark on this tree over here. And I'll have to look up to see just what that is, if that's some sort of blight that has gotten in here. But it's not going to be long before we see virtually no white ash in this area. It'll be taken up by other trees. The ash, the leaves really contributed to our beautiful fall leaves, in that they'd start off with bright yellow and go to some shades of brown. So I'm seeing a lot of birds today. Just walking in here, taking about 20 steps off the road, I've seen a white-throated sparrow. I've seen a number of nuthatches, which are really, you can tell they're called the upside-down bird because they tend to be upside down and walk down the trunks of the trees. And I believe I saw a chipping sparrow. So I'm looking forward to finding some more birds as we walk through here. Okay, we can't seem to get any more than 30 feet beyond the entrance to this place, and I'm just finding a lot of very interesting things. There are some remnants of old stone walls, at least on my left as I go in. But I notice this piece of rock, and you can see the foliation in this rock here, the layers of the rock, and even under it. This is highly layered. See here? So this rock was under great compressional forces that that compress this rock and cause the like minerals to accumulate in the same layers. And this has the look to me to be either it almost looks slate, but I'm hedging on that a little bit because I wouldn't expect to find a lot of slate around here. I do know of a slate quarry that's in Harvard, the next town over. But this foliation, these layers here are very curious and make me think of either a phyllite or a schist. And those are on a scale of gradation, if you will, on metamorphic rocks. But we can see the layering on this is just striking. Just striking. And this looks part of a stone wall. So what that means is possibly because it's a stone wall, someone built it. So if someone had some slate hanging around, although this is a pretty big piece of slate to move, it was placed on this wall. But there's 3 pieces of slate here. Some other areas of the wall have a lot of quartzite in them. I can see quartzite. So these are metamorphic rocks. Of course, they would have been laid here by the glacier, but this was striking. I see as we're in the woods here, just a lot of this dead and dying white ash. And you can see what happens to the white ash. It just breaks on the stump over here. And you really have to be conscious of that when you're walking underfoot, because it's really easy. You can see down here, the tree really gets incompetent. So always take a look at where you're walking. Look above, look below. Okay. One thing I want to add here is I am seeing a lot of birds, and they're flitting in and out all different directions. And a technique that I've used for calling in birds is what's called pishing. And it's a sound that I make and birders make, and it just goes like this. Pss, 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 pss. And if you continually do that in an area where you're seeing some bird activity, or maybe you're not seeing bird activity, but you want to bring them in, if you continually do that, pishing will tend to pique their curiosity, and you will call them in. Psst, 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 psst. So we're going to try that throughout the day, and we'll see what birds we get in. Okay, just off the beaten path here, maybe 100 yards off the road, on the left coming in, there's a deposit of rocks here. Kind of an interesting deposit of rocks, but there's not many deposits of rocks I wouldn't find interesting. I'm hearing a red-tailed hawk in the background. I don't know if the camera is picking that up, but I know Mark can hear it too. I believe he or she is circling overhead. But anyway, we have this deposit of rocks here, probably pretty slippery. Hard to tell if they're actually bedrock, or I suspect that they are bedrock. But certainly some of the protruding rocks have been, you know, broken up through ice, freezing and thawing over the years. And kind of a neat little deposit. Looks like granitic. Nice. You know, I've never been to Mill Hill before, And I'm finding this in the first 100 yards to be one of the most interesting places we've been to. I mean, here we are with 495 in the background. I feel like I have to yell for you to hear me. But between some of the geology that we're seeing here, this I find very interesting and something to ponder, and a lot of birds. This is really pretty interesting. One thing I should mention here is Mill Hill. Beaver Brook runs right by us here. So the Beaver Brook drainage, there'd be a certain amount of water that comes off this property into Beaver Brook, eventually feeding the Merrimack watershed. And as we go further through, we're going to find that this area may have been very interesting to other people before us that were here, just because of the proximity to Beaver Brook and what that would have meant in terms of fishing and other wildlife that would attract. So let's continue on. We're going to see if we can get a look of that red-tailed hawk. He was really screaming up there, which is great. And just a little side note on the red-tailed hawk. You might notice on some commercials where they have commercials of bald eagles, and they'll show, you know, how beautiful the bald eagle is, and they'll swoop in, and then you'll hear the call of the bald eagle. That's never the call of the bald eagle. That's always not always, but typically that will be the red-tailed hawk that they will dub in, because the call of the bald eagle, it's kind of a wimpy little call. So the call of the red-tailed hawk is what you're going to hear when you see a bald eagle. So just keep that in mind, and we're going to continue on the trail. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of blue jays now in the background, and maybe that's a reason why we're not hearing the red-tailed hawk, that the blue jays have chased it off, but we can hear a lot of blue jays. Okay, here we are, perhaps 100 feet off the trail, and we come upon this stone structure, and this is an old chimney. Okay, an old chimney, and it's got some modern day trash on it. This looks like an old electrical box and whatnot. And boy, if this place could talk, okay? The town took over this area, I believe, in 1965. Okay, I believe it was 1965. And thanks to Mark there for ensuring I said the right thing. But prior to that, this was just a great destination for families to come to vacation. There were small cottages here overlooking Mill Pond. And of course, there were places with picnic tables out and places you could barbecue. And this was probably the remnants of one of the stone, actually this looks a little large to be just a barbecue. I'm wondering if this wasn't a chimney that was on the side of one of these cottages. But you can see the general structure of it. And I noticed here this rock it was kind of tucked in the side of the chimney here. And this chimney has, you know, beautiful moss that hasn't been disturbed for a while, it looks great. You know, we have the moss and the lichens here, beautiful. But we have this rock, and I picked it up, and it was very, very light, very light. And if we look at this, it makes me think, typically when I pick up a rock that's very, very light, I always think in terms of, geez, is that a volcanic? That perhaps when the rock was being formed in a volcano, there was a lot of gas inside of it. So a lot of the area of the rock is filled with gas, and hence it's very light. And I noticed on the back, there was some writing on it. Now, it's not that old, so don't get too excited, because it is on duct tape. So I don't think duct tape has, well, I don't know how long duct tape has been around. There's something for you to look up. But there are what appear to be some coordinates here. I believe it says 42 degrees, 31.894. And then here says 277 degrees, I think, 24.694. So, Mark made mention that perhaps this is one of these prizes used in an activity called letterboxing, where people go from coordinates to coordinates to coordinates looking for little prizes such as this. Now, they don't pick up the prize and take it with them. They just make note of where they found the prize, and then they go on to the next one. But it's letterboxing, and another similar activity is called geocaching, where you go from location to location to location, finding different things, is a great activity. It gets you outside, gets you out in the open, gets you meeting people, or gets you away from people. Sometimes that can be a good thing. But we're wondering if this isn't used in either letterboxing or geocaching. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of this, and I will play that on the Mass State Lottery, and we'll see where that takes me. Okay, let's continue on. Well, as we continue along the trail, we come to another chimney here, or remnants of a chimney, and this one appears that it's been all filled in with mortar and the top capped off. This looks quite straight and still in pretty good shape. This has not been one of the quieter walks that we've taken, with the steady sound of 495 behind us. But I really have to say, up to this point, this has been a very, very interesting area to walk through. The trails are very approachable, and we didn't make any mention of the trails. And I should. When you come off the road, the trails are blazed in orange. Okay? And when we took what appeared to be a slight right, when we came to a fork, like Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork, take it. Well, we chose to take a right, and the trailblazes then went to blue. Okay, so the main trail was orange, and now we're on a side trail, which is blue. Now, it's interesting to note that when 495 came in, that had to have been a very trying time, not just for Littleton, but for many, many towns, to be cut in half by a superhighway. It meant taking areas like this, cutting it in half, perhaps some people's homes, cutting them in half, or at least losing their home through eminent domain, perhaps having to move the home or destroy it. And something as large as a highway coming into your town would really change the culture of the town, and make for some very lively conversation, I'm sure, when 495 came in. I don't know exactly when 495 came in. I think it was the early 60s, perhaps 63, 64. Thereabouts, and it, as I said before, it cut in half this area here, Mill Hill. Mill Hill was also known as the Stuart land. So I don't know anything about the Stuarts, but presumably it was a local family that owned this property first. But this is a very, very interesting area, and I look forward to walking through more of it. Okay, we're at the height of land now, and we've run into this pine tree here. This is a young white pine tree, and you'll notice some interesting features of this pine tree. It has quite a cavity here, and that cavity looks like someone lives there, okay? And this is their backyard, okay? Now, from the size of that hole, and I'm speculating here, I'm going to say that that hole is a little small for a pileated woodpecker, but maybe not. It's a little small for a great horned owl. I'm pretty confident in that. But it might be of the size for maybe a saw-whet owl, okay, which is one of our smaller owls that are around this area. Now, I really need to watch what I say about the saw-whet owl because my sister is an expert in banding of saw-whet owls. So I'm venturing on dangerous ground here. But what we're seeing here is some wash coming down the tree. So clearly something has been living in here, and this is some excrement from the young or the parents as they're entering that hollow to feed their young. And I'm wondering, as we get down here, the thing with owls is when they go to the bathroom, they drop what's called owl pellets. And I know that great horned owls drop pretty large pellets, and you can tell from the pellets what they've eaten. And that gives valuable information to biologists and birders and people in general. So I'm just going to take a quick look down here to see if there's any owl pellets from previous years. I wouldn't expect a bird to be living here now because the young would have fledged by now. They need to, get their business done and get ready for the oncoming winter. There aren't too many pine needles here. I'm not seeing anything. I don't see any owl pellets, but that's something that one should look for when, if you're so inclined, okay, when you see a cavity like that. But certainly the wash tells us something, and depending to the depth of the studying you want to do, you could do DNA analysis if you could get some, pure samples of that weren't contaminated to help you determine species and whatnot. But the size of the hole is, tells us the type of species that would favor a cavity of that size. But that's really interesting. That struck my Okay, we've got some more interesting stuff to look at over here. This place is just loaded with interesting stuff. Okay, this is maybe 50 feet from the tree that we were just talking about. All these bottles. Look at these bottles. And we have a hole here. Now, when I first saw the hole from a distance, I thought maybe they're digging a hole and they unearthed the bottles. And then I said, no, that looks more like a gopher or woodchuck hole. But now, just in the middle of this, I'm kind of changing my opinion, because as I look further, I'm wondering if this hole wasn't actually dug a little bit wider. Watch your hand. Well, I should watch my hands. You don't need to watch yours, but there's broken glass here. And I'm wondering if this was a hole that was excavated by some collectors to check what was in it. And then they filled it in, and then a woodchuck found this to be easy burrowing and then made its home here. Now, some of these bottles here, I'm going to try not to get cut here. There's a lot of old Moxy bottles. These are old Moxy bottles, probably a quart, about a quart in size. I don't know if there's any labeling. I got to put my glasses on. I don't see any seams on this bottle. That's kind of interesting. So this says Trademark Regulation, U.S. Patent Office, Moxy, registered AB company. Can't quite make out a date, but there's a Moxy bottle. Now, there's one, two, probably 7 or 8 Moxy bottles. This one here, whoop, don't cut yourself, is a Moxy bottle. No, it isn't. This is an XL bottle, EXCEL, and I doubt they're trying to push the spreadsheet at this point in time. And this is Acme Bottling Company. Sounds like something Wile E. Coyote would have invented, the Acme Bottling Company in Malden, Mass. Malden, Mass. Okay. Well, remember now, this area, similar to Long Lake and other areas in town, were probably highly prized by people in the city. And people coming out, they're bringing their wares with them, perhaps from Malden and other parts around Boston, and then they dumped it. Now, some other interesting, and some of these bottles look like they're formed, molded because of the line down the side, but I did recognize a bottle here, and my wife is gonna know this. Here's one from EMAR Bottling Company in Fitchburg, Mass. Okay, in Fitchburg, Mass. But the interesting one, there was one from, okay, here's the bottle that I was looking for, and I think my wife is going to recognize this, is from the Maydale Dairy, I guess. It's a contents 1 pint 12 fluid ounces. Now, oh boy, this is going to test me. Is 1 pint 12 fluid ounces? Or is this 1 pint and 12 fluid ounces? I think 1 pint is 12 fluid ounces. But this is from Maydale Spring, Maynard, Mass. And Mass, of course, is M-A-S-S. You know, and that would have been before we went to the 2-letter abbreviations for states. Maydale, and I'm going to ask Carol tonight where the Maydale dairy is. This is great. Now, here these bottles are at the top of the leaf litter. Nothing's covering them, which certainly makes me think these were unearthed recently, you know, and someone just put them here. And they all seem placed because none of them are really touching one another. So probably placed just to take care of things. You do have to watch out. There is a lot of real sharp glass up here. there are some people that just love collecting bottles, absolutely love collecting bottles. And it seems that this is something that's been done here, and I'll bet there's something living in there, but I have the feeling this was a dump. This was a dump that people just threw their stuff in, and someone's unearthing it. Okay, let's go over here now. Lots of interesting stuff here. Oh, one other thing I need to show is look at the size of these oak leaves here, right? These are huge, right? As big as my head, okay? Very big. Beautiful, beautiful stand of oak and birch and some pretty good hickory trees here. Okay, I want to point this out. This is a young shagbark hickory tree. You can see the diameter, it's less than a foot, maybe a foot. But you can see how the bark tends to grow in a very shaggy sort of way. And this is a shagbark hickory tree. And that is contrasted with pignut hickory trees, which is another variety of hickory trees that we have around here. And if I run into a pignut hickory tree around here, I'll point it out. But this is a shagbark hickory tree. Okay. Now let's walk over here. More stuff. Okay. Here we are. We're, maybe 40 feet from the bottles, 40 feet from the tree that we were looking at. And we're at the height of land here on Mill Hill. And it's a very inviting place. There's 3 picnic tables here in pretty good shape. And this is like an open invitation to come out here and have a little walk, have a picnic. You're at the height of land, so you can really see in a 360-degree view, the general shape of the woods that we see here. Of course, there's houses behind us and 495 over here. However, this is very delightful. What I have here are some objects, okay? And these objects, a couple of these objects were found on Mill Hill. In particular, this object was found about 400 feet behind me off of Mill Lane. And this object was also found on Mill Lane. This was found perhaps a couple years ago, I think. That would put us around 2013, maybe 2012. And this one here was found in 2007. Okay, the one in my right hand was 2007. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about this. When I was first given this, I kind of went a little bit numb, and I said, "That's a plummet. Where did you find this?" And the person that gave it to me said that she was digging at the foot of her mailbox off of Mill Lane, and this turned up. And I said, "Well, it's a plummet." And what a plummet was used for by Native Americans was as a net sinker. So for instance, if this is a net, they would tie 3 or 4 of these to the corner of the net, perhaps using some sort of twine. Okay. They would fashion it around here in such a way. And then tie that on the net. Okay. And it would bring the net down. Now, if you had one of these on each corner, properly tied, it would weigh down a load of fish under a net, and the fish would drown and it would be a way of fishing. Now, what I did when I first saw this is I was pretty excited when I saw it, but I wanted to verify what it was. So I contacted several archaeologists. One archaeologist was the New Hampshire State head archaeologist that I had done some work for in the past, and he said, that's a plummet. So the next thing I said was, about how old do you think it is? And he said, well, I really can't tell without seeing it, but he would guess that to be between 1,000 and 5,000 years old, which, if we think of the Native Americans around here, they're loosely broke into three areas. We have the Paleo Indians, which were around here after the Pleistocene and at the end of the Pleistocene Ice Age. Then we went into the Archaic Indians, and then we went into the Woodland Indians. And each of those advancements through the different types of Indians is based on the types of artifacts that we found, the types of technologies we find, and from that it allows us to assign gradations of where things might be. Now, this picture was shared with probably four different archaeologists, and they all feel that this is a plummet. Okay, and it matches very closely to plummets that were found in the Whalen, Mass area, and also plummets that are found in the Taunton River area. You can find some pictures on the Taunton website that show this plummet, and there were different opinions on the age, although the general age was between 1,000 and 5,000. That's quite a range in recent geology, but and it may have been used not just as a sinker, but it may have also been used like a bola, that you could wrap something around here and whip it around and throw it, or it's kind of a good-looking thing, right? So maybe you wore it like for decoration, okay? If you wanted to impress someone, you know, you had your nicely fashioned plummet. Now, these plummets weren't just found like this. There were rocks that were found that could be easily fashioned into objects such as this. And this shows that this was worked around here, worked over the top, and that's what that is. Now, another object that was found here that the person said, is this an arrowhead? Is this an arrowhead? Well, I haven't run this by any local, or for that matter, any archaeologists yet. But my feeling is that while this looks like it was worked a little bit because of the flaking of mosquitoes, okay, that this arrowhead or object lacks, you can see here, it lacks symmetry. Okay, it lacks symmetry. Now, it may have been something that was fashioned for scraping, perhaps scraping hide or something like that. But that's not even clear. I would need an expert opinion on this to determine if some of these areas here show signs of flaking, which tools that have been knapped do show signs of flaking. So it's not clear what this is. This rock here, I'm not sure where this was found. I'm not sure where this was found. But this is a rock that I think might be a geode. We did subject this to some x-rays, and we didn't see anything of interest in the center indicating that it may be hollow or something like that. It didn't give us any hints as the inside, but you can see as this was rounded, in kind of an ovoid way as opposed to truly rounded, that this shape, you know, I mean, there's some similarity between the shapes. Now, whether or not someone that needed a plummet would go off and find a rock like this and fashion it into a plummet, I'm not sure. Now, this point here, which I don't know where it came from, but this is out of chert, C-H-E-R-T, and this is a prized material that Native Americans would use for napping. And you can see on this where flakes have been taken out of these corners through a process called pressure flaking. And what someone would do, there's several different ways of napping. I'm not a napper, but they might use a stone to strike, okay, on the side. But then to get a little finer finish, they'll take something and they'll apply pressure to a particular area and do pressure flaking. Okay, and that gives you a nice fine line through this. And this shows, because of the conical fractures, signs of pressure flaking. And this has a fairly good edge on it, and I can tell that this is chert, and it's the top of some sort of point, but I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it came from. And finally, this projectile point was said to be found near the Assabet River around the 1930s, maybe early 40s, in Stowe. I don't know, that's what the gentleman said. I'm not sure that this type of, this shape of projectile point is indicative to what the Native Americans would have used around here. But unlike this point, which does not show any symmetry, this shows beautiful symmetry. Beautiful symmetry. And you can see signs of pressure flaking all through here. Now, it's interesting to know that we have stories of where these were found. We know where this was found. However, we don't know how this got there, okay? When these houses were built behind me, certainly fill was brought in, and might, in the load of fill, there had been a plummet in it, and it dropped in and was buried and then came up many years later. Or, and the more romantic version of this might be, perhaps this area might have been used by Native Americans. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that. Beaver Brook, a lot of hunting and fishing in this area, and there's been other artifacts certainly found in this, along the banks of Beaver Brooks and other waterways, that perhaps this was lost by someone that was fishing in this area and just became buried. We don't know. But it speaks to the importance of what's called provenance. And once you move something that you've found, you've lost a lot of information. You've lost a lot of information of where it came from. Just like those bottles over there. We don't know of those bottles which bottles were found closer to the surface and which ones were deeper. If we had that information, that might tell us something about the age of the bottles. You know, it wouldn't be ages of, you know, great periods of times, but it might tell us which bottles were thrown away first, which were thrown away second. And maybe there would be some seasonal separation between the bottles. So these are some interesting artifacts. These two were found in this area, but we don't know how they got here. This was found pretty close, allegedly in Stowe. And these two, can't remember where they were found. Okay, let's continue on. Well, that's it for Mill Hill. I have to say that this is a tiny place, about 24 acres, but this has been one of the more delightful walks I've taken in Littleton, and particularly doing this series. I've never been up to Mill Hill before today, and between the geology, the birds, the beautiful fall weather, the great company, this is an absolutely fantastic place. And I encourage all of you to come out to your backyard and complete this searching through Mill Hill.